Hey YouTube, Wayne's Fish Tanks 99 here, back at it for another video. On this week's video, I'm going to be talking about the top 6 beginner aquarium fish that are in my opinion. So this is going to be the top 6 fish for anyone starting new in the hobby, some fish that I would recommend. So they're going to be based on like the size that they get up to, what other fish you can keep with them, what size tanks you need, how easy they are to care for, and of course how colorful they are. So all these fish are going to be for aquariums 30 gallons or less, so between 10 to 30 or even 5 to 30 gallons. Mostly because most people that are starting off in the hobby who are getting their first tanks are obviously not going to, most of them, obviously I can't say everyone, most of them aren't going to get a 75 or 60 gallon or 125. Most of them are going to start a little bit smaller, maybe get a 5, 10, 20, 30 gallon tank. So I'm going to kind of put the fish in that tank size. So number one, probably one of the most popular fish in the aquarium hobby are going to be the neon tetras. I would recommend those between a 5 and 10 gallon tank or above anyway. Doesn't hurt to have more tank space, but probably at least a 5 or 10 gallon tank. They do well in tanks when there is a school of them, so probably about 5 or 6 or more, only because they do like to all swim together. Just kind of plays into how they are in nature. Obviously, the more fish there are in a school, a predator can't target on one fish. So that's kind of why they enjoy being in a school. They stay relatively small. They don't get more than an inch. They are hardy, meaning that they can kind of withstand a whole bunch of tank temperatures and different water parameters, which makes them a good fish for beginners. And they don't need, they can pretty much be found at any local fish store or aquarium store or anything like that, since they are one of the most popular fish. Next, I'm going to do the platies. So they're also a very colorful fish. They don't get too big either, maybe about an inch or so. They're readily available at most fish stores. I know any of the ones that are in my area have platies. I would recommend, though, at least a 20 gallon tank for those, because they do get to be relatively big. So you obviously don't want fish that get to be an inch in a small 5 gallon tank. It's kind of, I don't know, it's not good for the fish, and it'll stress them out, and it'll just make it more difficult for you. And it also is kind of cool that they are a live bearer, meaning that most fish lay eggs and then the eggs hatch, whereas these ones, they just pop out, just fish fry, young babies, which is kind of neat. Number 3, I'm going to go with guppies. Same thing, I would also recommend a 20 plus gallon tank. 20 to 30 gallons would be great. They do reproduce very fast, so you have to be careful that you don't get too many males and females. Maybe get mostly females or mostly males. Otherwise, before you know it, you'll have lots of fish. They do come in lots of different colors. There's a whole bunch of different colors, so that's why it's kind of nice, and that's why I have that on my list, just because there's so much variety and all that sort of stuff. And they are available at most pet stores. I know most of my pet stores in the area have those. Next, I'm going to move on to the Cory catfish. So there's, I think, over 145 or 150 different varieties. These ones I would keep in a 25 to 30 gallon tank at the least. You could probably get away with a 20, but they do need a little bit more room. So they are bottom feeders, which is definitely helpful because they will eat fish waste and any food that sinks down to the bottom. And of course they'll eat algae, which is fantastic. Next, I'm going to do betta fish. So most of you guys had probably had a betta fish, or the next fish I'm going to talk about. There's tons of different varieties. and they're readily available at most fish stores, and they don't need very large tanks. So these ones I would recommend between a 5-gallon or more. I would recommend 10, but most people say you only need a 5-gallon. But they are very, very good looking fish, and there's lots of varieties to choose from. Only thing you're going to want to watch is tank mates, so they don't get along very well with lots of other fish. So obviously you can't keep 2 males together. You can keep females together, but I would recommend like 4 or 5, just so they don't all target on one fish. So they kind of spread out their aggression on other fish. And then lastly, I'm going to end with goldfish. So most people have had one of these before. They are really hardy fish. There's lots of different varieties. I would recommend these, a 20-gallon tank. And yeah, tank, I wouldn't go with a bowl. I don't like people keeping fish in bowls because it's hard to have proper filtration and all that sort of stuff in them. At least if you have tanks that you can hang filters on the back and stuff like that, but a bowl, if it's shaped like this, you can't really hang a filter on anywhere. So that's why I would recommend staying away from bowls, and most bowls don't come big enough for 20 gallons, so it's kind of hard to keep the fish in a bigger tank. One thing you're going to have to worry about with goldfish is you're going to have to do water changes very often, because they do eat a lot and they do poop a lot. They're poop machines. So you're going to have to keep up with your water changes and cleaning your tank, only because otherwise things will get out of control and ammonia will get very high in your tank. And that's going to be it for my top 6 fish for beginners. So I hope you guys liked this week's video. If you guys would have any other recommendations or anything like that, please feel free to leave it in the comment section below. And as always, thanks guys for watching, and I will see you guys next week with a new video. Alright, thanks guys. Bye-bye.